everyone. Jennifer Vatsa here of Belladonna's Botanicals. And I wanted to talk about something. This was something I'm pulling in that was in some comments and also some conversations I had. And I had a couple requests to do a video on the topic. And to reference a couple things here. But we were talking about the literal versus figurative and metaphorical interpretation of Belial as the lawless one. And because the premise here is that in the left-hand path and also in sort of the broader, sometimes satanic communities, is there's a fuck all, we'll do what we want because we're the lawless one, and they take it literally. That the laws don't pertain to us, so we don't have to do better. We can just be righteous assholes because we're the lawless ones, or we're just, edgelords and stuff like that. Now, I will say, fairly decently versed in anarchism and things of that. Even anarchists have some methods, modes, ethics around social conduct and constructs, and maybe not necessarily. It doesn't mean without law, without order, that anarchy equals chaos, that being lawless equals chaos, and that the rules don't apply. Because in that sense, anarchists would all be a bunch of pew-pewing, essaying, very, very bad people. And they're not. They're actually some of the best people I know. Well, the ones that actually get what anarchy is. Because some people will call themselves anarchists on the left-hand path because they're taking the literal meaning of Belial as the lawless one, or are falling into the, well, we're the adversary, we're against everything, and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that we are a group, connected or not, a community that has no code of ethics, no standards, no morals, no general, like, hey, don't be an asshole to people, because that's where things break down. So I see a lot of people use the sort of the lawless one of Belial. I'm not sure how Belial feels about this, but let's analyze this literally, metaphorically, and figuratively, because I think some people are being way too fucking literal. So literal, according to the dictionary, it means taking words in their usual or most basic sense without metaphor or allegory, of a translation representing the exact words of an original text. So literal. I am human is literal. This is a bottle of soda is something literal. Belial as the lawless one, there's a lot of analysis, and some of it comes from the biblical lore, some of it comes from modern occultists, but are you looking at that literally? Because perhaps, let me get to my next screen, I'm on my phone. Perhaps we should look at this more metaphorically or figuratively. And I just closed the window to metaphorically, but there we go. So metaphor is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or an action, which it is not literally applicable, a thing regarded as a representative or symbolic of something else, especially something abstract. So let's see. The quote they put here in metaphors: the amounts of money being lost by the company were enough to make it a metaphor that the industry was teetering. So a metaphor is a comparison between two things. So that is one interpretation we want to look at too. There's a lot of different metaphors, and some of these are, cliche kind of phrases like, you know, oh, he was a shining star. He was a pillar of the community. That's a metaphor. Um, those things people say like, this person has a heart of gold or a heart of, do they literally have a heart of gold? Um, it's a metaphor. And I just closed the window to figurative. So, figurative is a way of expressing something that does not use a word's strict or realistic meaning. So, think of something like, that news really hit me like a ton of bricks. Did you get literally hit with a ton of bricks? And if you did, how are you to be able to tell me that you got hit with a ton of bricks? Because I assume that is a lot of bricks. So, we're looking at the interpretation of something that can fall into the figurative or metaphorical, symbolic, when you're talking about the lawless one. But I feel like there's a lot of emphasis that gets put on it in a very literal sense, that the rules need not to apply to people who are on the left hand path. We can do what we want and fuck all. Um, there's, no code of ethics, or there's no, and I'm not talking that these things need to be like, I'm literally a person who is like, I'm like, hey, do what you want, just don't be a dick, you know, treat each other, don't be a dick. That's pretty much it. Live and let live. Um, because that's where a lot of the problems I see in the left-hand path community comes from, these people who are literally interpreting these things and acting upon them in the most basic, uneducated, literal sense. Um, you know, it blows my mind. And those things are used as an excuse for bad behavior. Um, yeah, I'm sure Belial told you to go off your, spouse. Um, no, you're just, kind of fitting the narrative into that thing because you're interpreting Belial as the worthless one or the um lawless one in the most literal basic sense. So we really need to get away from looking at those things and the way um things are interpreted and start drawing our own conclusions, and also realizing that some things are symbolic, some things are metaphorical, some things are figurative. um Language has changed a lot over the years, and it's kind of like, you look at sort of, okay, the Christian Bible, whatever denomination you pick of it. There are people that literally believe every single thing in that thing happened literally as it is written. Most people look at it and be like, oh, these are nice stories, they're metaphors, they're symbolic, they're allegory, stuff like that. But, some people literally believe it word for word, and that's what they use to justify shitty behavior, um, and hating people, because they're translating this in the most basic, literal sense. Um, because they can't they don't have the brain power to think for themselves, because the words they read mean exactly the things that they are, and there's no room for interpretation. And in a recent video I was talking about that. You need to have room for interpretation and questioning things. Something that was supposedly written 2000 years ago or whenever by multiple people, I'm not entirely sure it's the most verifiable source of information, of factual historical information. I mean, yeah, sure, whatnot, but um, again, some people, it's telling stories in a way that people can interpret different things from them, and infer meaning and draw some semblance of cognizant, sentient interpretation. I don't know, but I feel like a lot of people use some of the in the left-hand path didn't necessarily leave the right-hand path dogma and literalism behind and brought it along with them and do the exact same thing here. Just with, like, Satan and, Belial and this and that. It's all literal stuff. And it's, especially with, like, being the adversary, and stuff like that. I'm like, there's a point at which you're just kinda, like, rebelling against yourself. How productive is that gonna be if you're, like, opposed to everything, or in that adversarial role in every aspect of your life? It's just there's a point at which you're like, there's healthy, and then there's you're a fucking asshole. Find the be an asshole when you need to be an asshole, but don't just be an asshole like 24/7 all the time. I know that's a lot. We live in a world full of gigantic, flaming assholes who enjoy it. And they make excuses for it. They legitimize it by taking the Bible literally or taking the things in you know, the left-hand path literally. Um, or as a sort of jumping into the next area of it's the divisionary duality and binary of like good and evil, light and dark, good, bad, and a lot of people get stuck on, well, we're satanic, so we're evil now. Let's go be evil and bad. Let's go curse everyone to death. Nah. Most people actually aren't like that. There are some that are. It's usually in a lot of these circumstances. Um, I think I'm quoting Heather's here, but the extremes always make an impression. And that is the case. The ones who shout the loudest might be few and far between, but those are the ones you hear and see the most. So you're looking at the signal to noise ratio because you might have 10 people shouting really fucking loud while the other 1,000 are like, hey, could you shut the fuck up over here? You don't speak for us all. Um, you're allowed to disagree with people, that's for sure. Um, you can disagree with people and still get along with them and be friends and learn something new. um, I feel like a lot of what I try to bring to this channel is, especially in areas where I'm looking at, kind of I do get questions and sometimes they're buried in comments on random videos all over the place, kind of about the left hand path community or the black magic community or about certain factions of the left hand path community. Um and why some people are really problematic and give us all a bad name, or they think that we all act this way or think this way when we don't, because again it's a few loud assholes stinking up the whole place. um if you want to follow those assholes, by all means, it's a free world, but you get what you pay for. um I mean, I'll tell it like it is, but you've really got to work hard for me to be an asshole to you. Because I'm not getting any younger, and it's not worth the age lines, of which at 48, I don't really have many of. So let's keep up the good work. Um, yeah. So I don't think I'm gonna make this an extremely long video. Haha, I say this now, and then 20 minutes later, I'm like, well, about that. It is getting late here, but I just want to make a quick video talking about that. Like when we're looking at some of these different things, I think, and I made a video that also dropped recently about healing with Abaddon. We look at Abaddon as Abaddon the Destroyer, Abaddon, Lord of the Abyss, and things like that, or uh, you know, many other things. But you're looking at it in one very particular literal way. Um, so let's start expanding our consciousness and our minds and thinking outside the box and thinking outside of what some people are telling you, because that's their interpretation and they may be literally like Belial as the lawless one, taking it very literally. Um, I'm sorry, we live in a world with some, semblance of order and rules and, rules of engagement, polite society, don't come over to my house and slap your dick in the mashed potatoes. I'm going to ask you to leave. I might laugh at you and take a picture, but, anyways, depending on the situation, we have rules of decorum, whether we like them or not. It's kind of like, I view a lot of, my platforms, my social media. I mean, I keep my personal stuff very locked down. So I don't allow a lot of people into those spaces, but I'm also very much like, you cover my house and shit on my carpet, I'm going to ask you to leave. I might rub your nose in the shit first, but you're going to be asked to leave because you're coming into my space and violating my rules of engagement and decorum, because I wouldn't go into someone's space and shit on their carpet. Um, you know, we have this, and that's all I'm saying for the left hand path community is like, maybe we just need like some guidelines for not being douchey edgelords. Heresy, I know. Anyways, all I'm just saying is live and let live. Don't be a dick. And if you have to be a dick, do it well. Yeah. So that's my little spiel on the English language and the different, and being able to differentiate literal from figurative or metaphorical, in the sense of not everything literally means what it means in that sense. This is literally a phone. This is symbolically the communication device of which I speak to all the people I've ever known on multiple platforms in multiple universes and blah, blah, blah. You can tell yourself a story about it. You can interpret it however you want, but I'm starting to get a little, but anyways, just know the difference. Especially when you're talking about these different entities and spirits, whatever pantheons, and gods and goddesses and demons and angels and whatever you work with. Ask yourself whether you're looking at something literally, metaphorically, or figuratively, or if it's meant to be looked at figuratively or symbolically and you're looking at it literally. That's all I'm asking. Because, like I mentioned, people do use the literal translations of things to justify their shitty behavior. Don't do that. Anyways, love you all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later. Love y'all.